Yes, hi, good morning. It's me, Melik Khachiyan, and I returned to chess.com chess lecturing. And today I picked two of my recent games. I just came back from a tournament in Reno, Nevada. And I believe I played finally after having a bad streak of bad games, kind of. Played a couple interesting games. And I would like to share with you guys. So this time my first game would be as a black against FIDE master Alex Klechitov and the local guy from California, from LA area. So I had a black piece that was fifth round, and in fact, I needed Matt to play for a win. And against his favorite move, knight f3, I chose d5. Well, this move order in particular, it kind of keeps black to be pretty much more flexible. And it's one of the weapons how you can met Meran system. In fact, if let's say white play here a3, some black players could consider here to play f5 with ideas to transpose the game to dodge defense. And this move warrior white is interesting because the bishop on c1 is pretty much shut down, and he's behind the pawn on e3, so that means he's not active. Because if you look at original, let's say, for instance, right here, difference, then this guy has the ability to jump on f4 and still control e5 square, and that would be better version for white to play against this type of Dutch defense. So against e3, I was actually really considering to play f5 since, as I said, my situation in tournament was forcing me to play for a win, and I was half point behind the leaders, and I need to play for a win to catch up the leaders. So that's why I was actually considering here to play the Dutch defense in this move order. But my opponent went here queen c2. Right, queen c2, very flexible move also itself. It's a pretty much waiting for f5 move. In case of f5, then white could consider to play bishop f4 without any problems, since the queen on c2 guarding c4 pawn. So black need to get back and play knight f6 to play kind of anti-Meran or Meran. Mostly anti-Meran, because the early move queen c2 here. And again, I have expected here moves such as a3, knight bd7, and knight c3, transpose it to anti-Meran, which at least the famous position after g4 complications here, or let's say bishop e2 following by b3 ideas, kind of slow plan. I was ready to play this way, and I was kind of surprised when my opponent played here g3. I'm not saying this is very sharp, but still, white playing position from Catalan style. And in fact, since you guys in future will be more professional players, you would have some kind of profiles on your opponents. And honestly, since I knew Alex for a long time, and I couldn't recall him to play Catalan as a white, and that's why it was a surprise decision for me to met against Catalan. So anyway, bishop e7. It's all pretty much theory here. Yeah, this is the first the situation. What's going on right here? It's called decline Catalan, when black not considering to take on c4 earlier. Since white played queen c2 by themselves earlier at the game, obviously I wasn't even thinking about take on c4. So this is b6 a very solid idea of black. It's pretty much reminding you guys to play against Queen's Gambit decline when black choosing to play Makagono-Bondarenski system, when famous pawn structure of d5, c6, b6, when trying to play bishop b7, knight b7, and c5. So this could be a better version for black because of move queen c2, early move queen c2. So, and here I think White made a slight inaccuracy by playing knight bd2. My understanding, it's really hard to say something more kind of more as a law, but I would say this way: I wouldn't play knight bd2 if it is not necessary, because I believe knight on bd2 it's kind of restricted because he doesn't have a future pretty much. And I would say White's supposed to try to keep opportunity for b1 knight to be developed on c3. So I would say the right moves here would be you could try rook d1 just in case to put the rook against the queen and be ready for any possible capturing from your d4 pawn. And then ideally, White's supposed to have pawn on b3 to defend c4 pawn, and then bishop on b2 or knight on c3. Or actually, bishop could be developed on f4 also, it's fine. But my point is, the whole idea of my setups try to develop my b1 knight on c3. That's the only thing. Because in a game, after knight bd2, as I said, I don't think so knight really feel well. Some people would say, hey, I will play e4, and after capturing on e4, my knight would be on e4. Anyway, what's the difference between this path or this path? I would say the difference is when you do with knight bd2 e4, black could consider not to take on e4, simply ignore it. And since there is no pressure, not much pressure on d5 pawn, then I can simply ignore it and pretty much being okay if you play e5. Because your bishop on g2, it's kind of stuck. Originally, my understanding of chess, or let's say structural thinking, it's simple. So one of the things I learned when I was a kid, every time when you try to set up fianchetto, let's say bishop on g2, for instance, your way of playing your middle game should be considering creating attack on the opposite side of the board. That means on the queen side at this point. So, you're looking for extension for your diagonal. Trying to open up this diagonal. So if your breakthrough with e4 doesn't help you to open the diagonal, I would say then you have some kind of mismatch. Because even if you play e5, you're trying to get some space on the king side, but your bishop on g2 is still misplaced. If your bishop will stay on d3 and they will attack on the king side, then it's a different story. So that's kind of mismatches going on in this system. That's why knight bd2, I would say it's too early for white. So bishop a6, this is another tricky move to defend e4 move. So temporarily I would like white to spend another move by playing rook e1. So because e2 pawn hang right now and white cannot play e4, since I have simply taken e4 and then c4 pawn will hang. So rook e1, knight bd7, and e4. And that's what I said, mentioned previously, I played rook c8. So I played rook c8 right here with idea to just simply wait. And since I forced white to have some kind of mismatches, and especially rook e1, also another mismatch, because white's mismatch, it's pretty much structural thinking. If white will play e5, then they'll have to create attack on the king side. And typically with having pawn on e5, you have to push f4 and f5. So, and you rook from f1 left to e1. So you pretty much wasted another move in your plan. So that's the idea. Again, this is my, I would say, this is my own way of thinking about this position. So I'm not kind of telling you this is the best way, but I would say this is an absolutely possible way to play this line. And for people who is, let's say, interested to create sharp position, not to give up attention in the center easily, that's definitely one of the possible ways to play this line. So after rook c8, my opponent played here queen a4, which another I would say completely surprised me again. because it doesn't sound when you're trying to play, let's say, middle strategy in the middle of the game, the middle center, and then you kind of having a switch. So I think the better way for White was here to play definitely e5 and try to stay with the kind of situation with b3, this kind of stuff, or even let's say CD, play this type of position, because the way how they reacted was completely strange. So he went here queen a4, and now I saw immediately I can take on c4 and b5, which forced White to take this risky pawn on h7. And now this is a very interesting situation when I have a completely one whole out of my pawn structure, and most of my pawn stands on the light squares, and I have a right bishop. So I believed after this point I actually had better position. Now, queen h7 bc pretty much must be taken on d5. Queen a4. Now, what to do? Again, it's always good advice at any situation when you, let's say, going to be out of plans or you don't see the clear plan for you what to do. It's better for you to take your time and still create a plan and try to understand what situation here. So let's say first move I made pretty much by autopilot, because I knew queen supposed to be on b6 by many reasons. Attacking d4 pawn, keeping my eye on b2 pawn, connecting the rooks. So the move was flexible itself anyway. But after queen c2, I took my time to understand position, what to do, what should I do. One thing I knew, since I have better pawn structure, one of the possible strategy to play against this situation could be simplifications. Because when you are dealing with, let's say, bad pawn structure, that means if you are in better pawn structure shape, then one of the ways to play is simplify pieces and try to take the game to the end game. But in this game, to get there, I needed still to do something else. And something else I found here, my worst piece. If you are guys following my lectures, you're supposed to hear that term before. I always call this play from your bad piece. So I've been told that way all my life. I mean, when I was a kid. So in this case, by my opinion, I found the worst piece in my camp, my d7 knight, because he's pretty much restricted, and I didn't see any future for him. I'm not saying he's terrible, but I would say he's not that good. So I found a way how I'm going to improve him, simply taking him to the best square. The way how you're supposed to understand that, it's very simple. If you figure out what is your worst piece, let's say I figured out myself, this is the worst piece. So in your imagination, take that piece out of the game. And let's say, imagine you're holding this piece in your hand and trying to find the best square on the board at this point where you would like that piece to be put it. And obviously, as deep as possible. So I consider 2 squares, but since d3 square, it's more, it's the deepest, it's deeper. So obviously, you try to get there. So in fact, if you guys are familiar with Mikhail Botvinnik theory, who was saying the knights on the third ranks, it's a nightmare. So obviously you would like to get there. And to get there, the path comes from a b4 square. To get b4 square, path comes from here and here. So obviously you will pick this square, because from that square you also attack d4 square, d4 pawn. That means you go here, you go here, and you go here, and then you get d3 square. That's how you're supposed to think. That's how your brain, your mind is supposed to work in this moment. And in fact, some people will say, oh, you know what, it's too slow. No, because the center is locked down, the center is not moving, and when the center is locked down, you can afford to play that slow chess. So knight b8, knight c6. So in 3 moves, we get there. Now, if black will give up the bishop, the dark bishop, then they'll be in trouble because look at these pawn structures. Again, they all stand in the dark squares, and it will be very hard for them to protect these pawns. So the only move pretty much to play here, queen d1. And since my knight is too active, it's forced white to trade them, which I wanted. This was my strategy, my plan, and now I found this move, bishop a3. For some people, it could be a surprising decision of mine why I went for simplification and I trade my 2 knights for his looks like bad pieces. But the reason is very simple. It's always like that. If you are dealing with bad piece, let's say I was dealing with g2 bishop, which I believed was useless because I didn't see for him how he's going to be, let's say, involved in the game. So one of the ways how you're dealing with this kind of pieces, it's eliminating the other pieces. Because if a bad piece has a teammate, if bad piece has a friend, then he has a kind of chance to be recovered. If bad piece in trouble by himself, alone, then it's very hard. That's why I found the famous strategy of playing against that piece. It's actually to eliminate the rest of the pieces. And in fact, when major pieces on the board, especially queen, and you have kind of better chances, joined with your bishop, it will pretty much give you some kind of position when you are playing with extra piece. Now, bishop a3, rook b1. That's another important moment of the game, and I'm going to explain to you. So it looks like your queen has many squares to be put, and some people will consider queen a5 immediately to try to attack c3 pawn. Some people will say something else, but let me explain something how you should think. So again, rook b1. Let's try to understand this position. My favorite principle to teach all my students is this. Every time when I'm not saying you're getting confused, but let's say trying to get a better picture of position, how you think, you're supposed to ask yourself a question, what would you do if you would be your opponent? What would you do? And since if you imaginary put yourself as a white player, you're supposed to ask yourself that question, and you will see the answer. The answer is very simple. Since my bishop is kind of trapped, so I would consider to play f5 and f4 to push on e6 square, and let's say try to force black pawn to move from e6, and then my bishop will attack d5 pawn, and I'll get back to the game with full power, and I'll have no problem. Now black player thinking, okay, well, I found the idea, f4. So obviously, if I could play f4, I would have to play g6 to stop f5 move. So what white would do? Well, white would do, I guess, g4 to support f5 move, to still try to play f5. That means that's an answer. So where are we going to put the queen? Well, obviously, there's 2 squares, queen d6 or queen c7. Now, which one of the squares is better? Because both squares are looking for f4 pawn and will stop f5 move. Actually g3, g4 move after f4, g6. But which one to pick? So I picked c7. The reason is, besides of thinking about some defense, I also try to keep my eye on a5 square and attack c3 pawn. And also, it's important for me to keep this diagonal available for the bishop, just in case to consider to retrieve on d6 and create my second eye on f4 pawn if I need it. So, queen c7 was the right square, not a7, not a5, not d6, c7, the only right square for the queen to stay after rook b1 move. f4, g6. Now getting file immediately. Now, unfortunately, white cannot play f5. Let's say if they play f5 here, we're hoping, let's say, for this kind of stuff. Unfortunately, it doesn't work because I have in between move rook b2, which kills the whole idea. So white has to play to defend the file. They went here, rook e1. Again, the only move to play queen c2. And now the difference between queen d6 square and c7 square, I jump on a5. Now, it's a problem of c3 pawn, and if you play passive queen c2 to defend the pawn, then I would play simply queen b5, queen b2, trade the queens, and pick the pawn c3, and that would be absolutely losing endgame. Even though you have aptly colored bishops, but this is hopeless. Black would create f6, f5. Let's say, let me show you something quickly. For instance, this kind of stuff. So I will bring my king on d6, and I will consider here to play f6, e5, and these two passes will simply win the game. So there is no way you can hold this position too much, and this pawn is nothing because it's simple stuff right here. There is no movement on that pawn, so it's a simple win, and I knew to expect here some aggressiveness. But as to the way how I'm going to get out from the checks, my queen controls the square, so I switch. I'm forcing white queen to be switched and attack from other type of square. In fact, a general advice when you are kind of in situation when you're dealing with perpetual checks, and all these perpetual checks comes from one color of squares, try to force your opponent to put his major attacking piece on the opposite color of square. So after queen b7, his routine is going to be collapsed. So queen b7 check. And now, I could probably take on c3, but there is some kind of, there is a perpetual check. That's why I needed to make some kind of waiting nice move, and I found this move, h5. Again, I think right here you could take because this actually you're going to retreat. But the problem is why I refuse to play queen c3, because here he has queen d5, and I wasn't sure if I can win this position after here. I wasn't sure if I can win this because it looks like the bishop is kind of activated. Even it's kind of awkward to have a queen and bishop like that, but still I wasn't sure if I can win this. I don't know. I have decided to keep attention and making sure my pawn structures didn't change. And that's why I found h5 move. Again, why h5? Because I was trying to get this pawn by keeping my queen on a5 and defending d5 pawn and c7 square. So I found this man here. But then I saw his g4 and g5 ideas. So I figured out for me it would be better to play h5 to control g5 square. G4 square. And he found actually, I was trying to call h3 move. Then it's good to take on c3, obviously. But he found nice move king f1. And on my move, basically bishop c1, Alex found the only move to defend his position still, in time pressure, by the way, which surprised me. So he went here, and f5. It's the best chance. And bishop f3. Yeah, here, after first time control, it took me, I would say forever. It took me about 20 minutes again to understand. I knew I'm not saying I'm close to win, but I knew I'm still in better shape. But there is some issue with my f7 pawn and my e6 pawn, and I had to find a way how to defend those pawns. And after a lot of time of thinking, I found, I believe, the only way to defend this position, defend my pawn structure and keep all my good things on the board. So I found here king e7. Idea staying away from possible x-ray and pin situation and defending e6 pawn. Now, bishop h5. If you play f6, then he has queen b8. It's not good. So, and queen d8. Yeah, that's the key move. That's really key move because my bishop on d2 is very strong by taking away e3 square and still thinking about taking on c3. So the only move is a queen g7 and now queen e8. This is a very strong move because it's still defense f7 pawn. And most important, let's say, if you get back to e5 trying to attack from other side, it doesn't really help you because I would take and I have queen d7 move. I'm still covering all checks, and I'm sure that this endgame it's a loss, supposed to be lost for white because my three passes more valuable than your h passes here, and I have extra pawn. Maybe there is some kind of still have to be accurate playing, but I knew one thing, I will win this. So, and here, but in fact here he collapsed. Maybe still queen e5 was a better choice, but I don't know what's crossed my opponent's mind. He refused to play queen e5, and he went understandably he went g4, trying to steal. Seeking for some kind of counterplay, but g4 it's losing in spot just immediately. What he missed, again, I saw what he wants. Let's say he wants this stuff and kind of create a draw situation, but it was simple to defend. I played queen b8 here, and this was very strong. Queen b8, it's again defending e5 square. G5 square defended by bishop, a5 square defended by queen. He cannot take because queen f4 check followed by king a6. So I would say game is over here right now. So after queen h7, very strong check. The only move. Another strong move, forcing white queen to get back on c2. And now no more bothers for my king. And then I took on c3. And so desperation. There's a few more moves. And my opponent has resigned right here. So that's how I won this game. And again, as you see, my pawn structures remain the same without any change. From opening, and his bishop on g4 still pretty much trapped, and his bishop still pretty much useless. So that's how you, by getting pawn structure out of opening, you are forcing to win the game. Again, the strategy in this game was to keep a pressure, to keep attention, and force your opponent to simplify position, and basically by forcing him to stay with his bishop without any friends. In fact, I faced some kind of complications, but what I managed to do, I kept my pawn structure without any big changes. So I hope you understood this lesson and you will learn what to do in the situations. And I hope this game will be very helpful and useful in your library, in your games. Well, thank you, and I'll see you next time.